We'll go ahead and get started. So I'm Susan Kelsey, for those I haven't met. I work here in City Hall behind this wall here. Come and visit me anytime. The program today is John Walsh and John Ryan.
Yep.
We'll be talking about 7:15 until about 8:30. We'll leave time for Q&A after. I'll leave it up to John if he wants to handle questions during his presentation. But we're thrilled to have you here today. I guess, why is the city hosting a digital marketing workshop? Well, it's recently been added to our strategic plan. So it's a line item that we wanted to knock off. We think it's important for retailers. I just went to the Chicago shopping mall conference yesterday. And so here you have the latest results of what's going on with online technology and some of their stats. But e-commerce is about moving 4 times faster than regular brick commerce. So I think it's something that's it's here, of course, to stay. They project like a 20% increase in the next couple of years. But then the m-commerce, the mobile commerce, they don't even know that impact on the internet, computer shopping too. So there's a lot of interesting things here. This is Bridget Lane's presentation for those of you who've heard Bridget Lane. And then our speakers today are John Walsh and John Ryan. And John Walsh is a member of our business incubator. This is a new initiative for the city. So both of these are on the table. Feel free to read them. We're so excited to have them here. And with that, I'll let them introduce themselves.
Great. Maybe even before we jump in, just a couple of quick things building off what Susan just said.
Do we need to use the microphone?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
videotaping.
Okay.
We were just going to use
You
it
can-
for harmonizing, but we'll use it the whole time.
So first of all, thanks to Susan for inviting us out. And
That's on. I can't fix
hello. I'll talk loud. I think this should get picked up in the video. But so I am a member of the incubator, and I know Alejandra is too. And so hopefully all you folks will be hearing more about us. And as the weather warms up, I think we'll have barbecues and just try to create sort of events for the town to come out and the business owners to get together and talk. But so thank you for having me, and the incubator's great, and I love working there. If you want to email me, it's actually John at 10x10 Digital. Sorry about that. But email me, John at 10x10 Digital, and I'll give you a copy of the presentation after it's done. In terms of Q&A, it's okay if you guys want to ask some questions while we're sort of running through the deck. If it gets a little sideways, we'll try to just get through, because I think that it ends with recommendations. We want to make sure that we get to all our recommendations. But that said, if something comes up in context, feel free to raise your hand or whatever, and we'll try to answer your questions best we can. Like she said, we're going to try to get you guys out of here at 8:30, I guess. So.
Finish by 30 and Q&A is when
And we may finish earlier. Hopefully we will finish earlier. So with that, so I go backwards.
and have you forwarded.
Use a keyboard.
Yeah. John, run over there. and
This
use the
doesn't work?
keyboard.
I will make sure it's.
Oh, okay. So I'm John Walsh. I live in Lake Bluff. I've lived here for 6 years. I have 3 children, one of whom dances, and I love living here. I've been in digital marketing in one sort or another for about 16 years. I've worked with various customers along the way, or been employed by various people, including Microsoft, Best Buy, AOL. Placed my first banner ad in 1996. Some of you, like 56K modems, Netscape. So a lot of fun back then. No measurement available besides what you brewed yourself, and so it's been an interesting journey. I started my company 10x10 about 3 years ago. Met John Ryan about 3 years ago as well, and he and I have been working together on a bunch of clients since. And then,
Yeah, so a long-time Chicago resident, maybe stretching it. I was born in Chicago, but then I moved to Savannah, Georgia. I moved back here about 6 or 7 years ago when the company I was working for, HowStuffWorks.com, was bought by the Discovery Channel. And it gave me a little impetus to start my own thing. I was running digital strategy for How Stuff Works and moved into that role at Discovery. And just decided I wanted to do what I do for a wider spectrum of clients and websites. Sites like Discovery are sort of one-trick ponies. They want to serve up a lot of display advertising is basically all they do. So it's constantly focusing on how can you get people to look at more pages by, whenever you get online and you start looking at a slideshow or taking a quiz that goes next, 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 that's serving a display ad every time, and that's how they make money. That gets a little old after a while. So by starting my own business, I was able to go work in a number of different verticals with e-commerce companies and lead generation companies, brand sites, so some of the sites we're going to talk about today. John and I have been lucky enough to have some of the bigger name clients that you see there. I mean, Mayo Clinic's been a shared client of ours for a number of years. We really like them a lot. Block, we work with every tax season on email marketing and their web analytics and some other things. We work with some retailers, some larger sort of organizations, but we also work with smaller businesses. And a lot of times, I'll just say, and sorry to run wild with this, but I will say, working with smaller businesses is usually much more effective for us. The larger sort of brand names are usually sort of, they have an enormous amount of political infrastructure, and so for them to make a change that we recommend is sometimes very hard, whereas a smaller business will, we're usually working with the senior decision maker. If we say, hey, look, you need to change your website pretty aggressively, or we need you to market in this channel more aggressively, they can see sort of their bottom line and see how it relates to their business, and usually it's much faster and more actionable. But anyway, that's sort of, and we work with Don Julio Tequila. Who doesn't like tequila? All right, what's next, John? Somebody doesn't like tequila here? Do you want me to? Okay.
Go for it.
All right. So, just a little bit about what we're going to talk through today. First of all, this is a very basic sort of digital marketing 101 presentation. This does not get into anything terribly complex. So, if you're already really savvy on these techniques, this may be remedial. But for everyone else who's just trying to get up to speed on what's happening these days, having a digital marketing background, or maybe you worked in a company where you were responsible for digital marketing before you had your own business. Having that marketing experience is helpful, but it's certainly not, in any way required. There are a lot of basic things you can do, and there's a lot of good information on the internet, and there's just some common sense approaches you can take to, improving your website. So we'll talk about some of that. The important thing to remember is that, because a lot of people who are doing it on their own and bootstrapping digital marketing programs will read things and say, well, I can do this, and I can do this other thing. If you copy what somebody else did, it may not work as well as you want to. Your digital strategy should be very specific to your business. Even if you have the same type of business as somebody else, your strategy is going to be slightly different, I can guarantee you. So beware of things where it's like, I'm just going to do the same thing that somebody else did. One exception to that would be if you're an e-commerce company, I wouldn't say do something like put your add to cart button way at the bottom of the page. Put it where Amazon puts it. There's certain things you probably should copy, but in general, you need to have something that's unique in you and gives people a real sense of why your business is unique. Same as offline. Again, like I said, there's some of the things we're going to recommend is really starting simple. When we do work with some of these larger brands, it's funny. I'd say, John, you'd agree with me that I'd say 100% of the time when we go in there, these larger brands want something that's cutting edge and new, and something they just read about, and something that's all the buzz. They want, not that this is new, they want blogs, or they want Twitter, or they want to, merge the two, or they want mobile Facebook, and, all these things. And we go and look at their sites, and they haven't even done the basics. They can't be found very easily in organic search engines. They can't, their sites are architected very poorly. So, there's a certain amount of eating your peas when you're building your website and building your digital strategy. So I would say do that, start simple, and use common sense. One of the things that's very, John and I, like I said, we work together. Our companies share a very similar philosophy. And the core of that philosophy is data and analytics. People come to us and say, I need some help with search engine marketing, or I need some help with content marketing or whatever, our first question to them is, let us look at your analytics. Because when we look at the analytics on their website, we can tell what everyone's doing. We can see what people are interested in reading about, what pages they're going to, what sources of traffic are leading people to fill out a form or download a white paper or buy something in a shopping cart. But the analytics usually tell us a different story, and it'll help us find out where the problems are on their website, where the opportunities are, and we'll typically come back to somebody and say, this is really what you want. You don't need help with search engine marketing. You need to sell more clocks, or you need to get more people to schedule a test drive. That's really your goal. Let us help you figure out how to get more of that instead of focusing on one particular channel. The other thing about analytics is, the great thing about analytics is, and I learned this back at Discovery, where I was a very small fish. As you can imagine, the digital program at Discovery is almost a rounding error in their revenues. I mean, they're a huge global, broadcast, entity. The web is a tiny little sliver of that. They probably wouldn't care if they were in the red on all their websites collectively, but they would. But one of the things I ran into there was that, there were a lot of people who, were much more powerful above me, who were trying to make decisions about what the websites, should be like. The great thing is analytics is the equalizer, because even if the, CEO of Discovery says, I think, the Man versus Wild website should be XYZ, I could say, fine, we spend a lot of money. I can show them the analytics that didn't work. So the next time we have that conversation, I'm able to go in with the data and say, this is how people want to use this site. This is what people are doing. So it's a good way to stop thinking about, what you like and start thinking about what your customers like. Can I give one last example? I know but I was talking earlier about restaurants, restaurant websites. I'd say we probably get called 2-3 times a year by a restaurant, and a lot of them will say, well, we want to develop a whole bunch of new content about like the quality of our ingredients or the way we treat our employees and so on and so forth. And that's all great, and I think it's admirable that they want to spend the money to develop those types of things and tell that story about their brand and so on and so forth. But the reality is, if you look at the analytics on most restaurants, you'll see that 100% of the people are only looking for like 1 or 2 things. They're looking for the address, the phone number, and the menu. And when we look at what pages that, you say, here you had 10,000 visitors, to your site last month, and 2 of them looked at your ingredients, page. And they spend a lot of money on those things. So again, it kind of hurts to have to swallow that and say, okay, people don't care about my ingredients or my people or whatever. They just want to get the menu and order some food. But that's where it breaks down, and we have about, some of our clients really like the data-driven approach. Some people don't. They like to say, I want to run my business the way I want to, and I don't care what you tell me that people want to do. So anyway, it does eliminate guesswork. Sometimes it's not the most pleasant elimination of guesswork.
I'm going to jump in on that too. So I met with a small business, a startup business, and they had just baited their site and made it public, and I was sitting with the business owner, and he was quite proud of the site. And I had said to him, well, one thing that's obvious to me here is I don't see your value proposition on the homepage, right? He just wants people to jump right into searching for his products and such. And so light bulb went off, and he said, wow, that's great. Well, what else do you think about my site? So well, it doesn't matter what else I think about your site. Let me look at your analytics, and I'll tell you where people are having problems with your site. And so it takes the emotion out of it, like John was saying. It's important. Can I click this? You want me to take this one?
Yeah, sure.
So, like John was saying, I think the 3 things we want to try to get through today in an hour, and it may be ambitious, is we want to walk through just some digital marketing fundamentals. Again, for some of you, it may be basic and stuff you already know backwards and forwards, but we're going to walk the team through it here. We want to talk about the basics of acquisition, conversion, and retention. It's fancy words for getting people to your site, getting them to take action on your site, getting them to come back again. And then we're going to get into some tactics, some very tactical recommendations for how we would go about creating the site and supporting the site. Anything else to add to that?
No, except I will say that acquisition, conversion, retention is something that we talk about a lot, and digital marketers talk about a lot. And there's some other things people add into that, like engagement and some other things. But that obviously that's not specific to digital marketing. I mean, again, going back to the restaurant thing, it's the same thing. You want people to come to your restaurant, order more food, and come back again. It's the same thing on the web. You want people to come to your site, take some action, and come back again.
You want to cover
Yeah,
that?
sure. Yeah, great. Okay, we'll just run through this quickly. There's a lot of jargon in our industry, and we're going to be using, we probably already have used some of these terms, and, I don't think you should get caught up in them, but we just wanted to throw them up there that, there's some basics that you need to know about your channels. So where does your traffic come from? Does it come from emails you send out, or social channels, or organic search? Traffic, this is, 10 years ago, none of these words were in the common parlance. It was all hits. How many hits does your site get? Now people want to know very specifically, how are people engaging with my content? How are they pathing through my site? Especially mobile, huge growth in mobile. We've seen it in almost all of our clients, astronomical growth. But we can now get down into the real nitty-gritty of how these people are interacting with your site. There's a lot of tools and technology that are out there. Obviously, analytics systems for telling what's happening, content management systems, basically a fancy word for that's the sort of the container of your website. Lots of other tools and things out there. This doesn't even scratch the surface. And then you'll hear a lot of times when you're taking a pitch from a company like John's or mine or larger agency, there'll be a lot of lingo that can throw you off. Some of you probably heard about these things, but it can be a little daunting when somebody walks in and says, "Oh, your problem with your search engine optimization program is that your domain authority is so low." I mean, what does that really mean exactly? I mean, we kind of know, but we bandy these terms around. I'm just saying, don't worry about it. You'll learn them throughout the time when you're building your site.
But we will use them today. And so if you have questions about any term that we use that you don't understand, raise your hand and we'll do our best.
What is domain authority?
Domain authority is a calculation that was developed by a company called SEO Moz. And what it does is it looks at how many people are linking to your website and what is the quality of those links that are coming in. So a tiny little blog linking into you that's talking about something that's completely off topic is not as relevant as a link from CNN that's an article about your company. So it calculates sort of the link power. People linking to you is what's important in search engine marketing. And so it calculates the sort of power of your website.
In that the number of links and the quality of links, like John just referred to, it's only one of many elements that Google looks at in their algorithm, their ever-evolving algorithm of how they're ultimately going to rank you in organic search. And so when we're going to talk about the anatomy of search and such down the road, but it's sort of a proxy for, because Google is under lock and key in terms of that algorithm, this acts as a proxy of how likely you are to show up in search, basically, is sort of an easy way to look at that.
Just quick, because I know we jumped in sort of a real specific term, I mean, and a real specific channel, organic search, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but most websites are going to find that traffic from search engines is their most actionable traffic. Most of the time, it's going to be the most traffic you get. And the great, what I mean by actionable is that we can tell a lot about the intent of people that are coming to your site by what keywords they use to get there. We can tell a lot about how they move through your site once they use those keywords. So it's really a rich source of information for people like us. But one of the keys to it is Google, and Google is really like John said, there's many variables that go into how you would rank in Google. But one of the sort of fundamentals is that made the Google algorithm very different from any search engine at the time, back in the late 90s, was that instead of having humans decide which sites were the most popular, it used a computer system to say, this page must be more popular because more people are linking to it. And then ultimately looking at, this page must be really popular because bigger, important websites are linking into it. So that's sort of the fundamentals of the Google algorithm. All right.
They say over 1 million variables it calculates to determine your page rank. So I'll just open up and say, so we're going to just quickly walk through basics of digital marketing, starting with types of websites. Just quickly sort of explain, the purposes of various websites in the world. At a very high level, we're going to talk about, there's basically 3 types of websites in our world that we deal with, and some, may want to accomplish a couple of these different goals, but inevitably it seems like there's one primary goal of the website, and the first is, of course, e-commerce, and we'll talk through a couple examples, but the main goal is to get the visitor to convert to a transaction, to get to the shopping cart, complete the transaction, leave the site, come back and do it again, right? Amazon obviously is the big example there. Then there's lead generation sites. A lot of technology companies and IT companies use this. They offer incentives for folks to come into the site, fill out a form, get more information, join, get important news, etc. So, and then those people become qualified prospects for the business, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the third category of folks is folks who are essentially supporting their brand. So, John likes to say you're out at a cocktail party and you're a lawyer and you hand the person your card, and the next day they get up and look you up online. They want to see that you're a credible shop and you have the right background and such. So,
I always say that they want to know that you're competent.
Competent. What did I say?
That's good.
So, right, I guess I'll cover this.
Hey, go right ahead.
So on e-commerce, right, the sort of elephant in the room is Amazon, and like John said, when it comes to e-commerce, we always look to what is Amazon doing, and although we never like to copy anyone directly, we certainly take inspiration from Amazon because they have been doing it and have been improving upon it for years and years, and are the masters at getting people into the cart, recommending products, etc.
John, just can I add one more thing on that? When I said your digital strategy needs to be unique, and Amazon has a very different digital strategy than Best Buy, but I'm talking about just the page itself. Copying a page layout, that's the one area where it's really good to copy people, because someone like Amazon has spent an enormous amount of time and money figuring out how to get you to, I remember reading an article about how long it took them to realize that they put that little drop-down box above the add to cart button where you can change your number, because before you could change your number after you added it to cart and were checking it out, and that added some astronomical amount of revenue to their average cart value. But we can learn from these big companies that spend a lot of money and are digitally savvy. We can assume that Amazon's product page is about the most optimized for conversion e-commerce page there is in the world. And same with people like eBay, if you were doing anything that had to do with auctions or bidding or anything like that. So that's the one area where you do want to copy. But in terms of your entire strategy, where you're going to get your traffic, how you're going to grow your website, what things you're going to focus on, that's probably not a good idea to copy Amazon.
Second type of site, lead generation. And so, like I mentioned earlier, it's a real common tactic for IT companies. And so a couple examples here, Barracuda Networks, who some of you may have heard on the radio and such, a client of ours. John had mentioned we do work with some smaller, less recognizable brands, and this company, Universal Air Filter, is one of them. In this case, what we're showing here is one of their main goals is to get a very specific audience, folks who are designing boxes for Cisco, to come in and request a filter prototype from them in hopes that that box will go to production and all of a sudden they'll make 100,000 filters of that type for them. So very specific audience. This is a very specific action from that audience that qualifies these folks. If they attach a drawing of that filter, it makes them even more qualified. And then, an example from someone in the room here, Tom Horan, who just opened a online storage business, 80/20 Business Solutions. What he's doing here is he's hosting webinars to sort of inform people around what their backup strategy should be, and presumably folks who come and attend that webinar will become leads for him and ultimately become customers for him. And Tom knows a lot about digital marketing, and even though he doesn't know that he does, but feel free to ask him a lot of questions. For free. And then in terms of brand, I consider, and I was talking to Ellen a little bit about this, I consider the main objective of her site to support her brand. sort of building off that use case, here you are at a function at the opera, at a cocktail party, and you see someone in an outfit that you like, oh, well, I've got to before shop. And I think the primary goal of your site, at least from what I can infer, is that, okay, this has the collections I want, I know where to go and get the service that I expect from like for shop. Likewise, my friend Craig Pearson, who runs a small law firm, same type of concept. You know, he gets referrals mostly, and those referrals often sort of vet him through his website, and we can see that through his analytics. And then Carrie, for now, I think Carrie Sherman, who owns Bloom and Focus, she sort of has 3 channels of business that she's beginning to support. She does, family and group portraits. She sells fine art, and she's now hosting classes. But for the time being, I think her site serves to promote her brand and promote her individually.
Can I ask a question, comment? When I look at these 3 that you pulled up, there's only one that has the phone number right at the top. And when you talk about promoting the brand and using this as an outlet for people to get more information, don't you think it's important to have the phone number right there? Because that's usually why people are going to the site, right, to call.
An easy contact mechanism, absolutely. And especially in the mobile, when folks are searching on you mobily, you'll want that rendering of your site to have that click-to-call action, absolutely.
If I'm using my phone and I do a search for a business in town because I want to either check their hours, see if they carry collections, order food, whatever it is, I want their phone number. And while you can on Google, you can just hit the call button and it'll call directly. But if you for whatever reason, as a convenience measure, I've found in my business, if your phone number is right at the top, they usually want to talk to you. But if I have to hunt and scroll down and go to another page and click contact and go through all those extra steps, by that point, I may be calling somebody else.
Agreed.
So I'm just curious your input on the contact information being
100%.
brought forward.
Absolutely. If not available for action right on the site, a clear action for where to go get that information, and especially in the mobile world.
And for an address too. I mean, nothing is more frustrating, especially as a digital marketer. Nothing's more frustrating to me when my wife tells me that we're going out to dinner somewhere, and I'm going to look up their address, and I can't find it, and it's a restaurant. I mean, to me, that's like just shocking that they're making it difficult for you to even find where they are. So I totally agree with you. The only caveat I would say is that, it may be that, let's say you were a very, I think you want contact information for sure. But it may not be, if you're, say, a high-end interior designer in Lake Forest, you're not really selling anything through your website. You don't want people to come fill out a form. You don't want people to find you in search engines who are typing in things like redecorate my room, because that's just not going to be good qualified traffic for you. So you may play that one a little cagier. You may not want a big phone number at the top of your website that sticks out. But contact information, for sure. As a matter of fact, that's all John and I have on our websites. I don't even know if I have a phone number on mine. It may just be my email address. That's a whole different story about how come we don't have websites. There's actually a really good reason for that, but we'll save that if there's time at the end.
Thanks.
You want to?
Sure. So we talked about this. There's really nothing more to say. But this is what we focus on all the time. Either from a problem perspective, is your problem a traffic problem, getting people to your site? Is it a conversion problem, getting people to do something once they get there? Or is it a retention problem, getting them to come back? A lot of times, I can tell you where some of these things come into play. If we see that, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to use sort of big name clients to say we just deal with big name clients, but just because most of you have heard of some of these things, you'll get it immediately. So I'm going to use some examples of some larger clients. But for instance, Advil. Advil, when we look in their analytics at their search traffic, they get a ton of traffic from search engines. That's where the majority of their traffic comes from. But if you look at the keywords people use, they all say Advil. it's it's Advil PM, Advil, headache relief, Advil, arthritis, whatever, all the brand names of Advil, that's their 99% of their traffic. What they have an acquisition problem because they don't have a broader spectrum of keywords that they respond to. If you go to Google right now and type in headache relief, you're not going to see Advil. So that's their problem. They want to get more traffic on a wider selection of what we call unbranded terms. Search terms that do not include their brand name. That's an acquisition problem. A conversion problem would be more like you have a ton of people coming to your site, but they're not buying anything. They're not downloading the white paper. They're not, and we have a lot of methods and ways to get people to get them where they want to go faster, get them through processes faster, and even when it gets a little more sophisticated, sort of introducing friction into people you don't want to fill out. Like, for example, a credit card company does not want everyone to apply for a credit card. They want certain people to apply for a credit card. So those screens that you go through to apply for that card are going to ask some very tough questions in the beginning because they don't care if they have some loss, because those people who don't meet certain thresholds, they're happy with them going away. They want the right people to make it through that funnel. So it can get very simple, change your page around and let's get more people to click the button, to let's change the whole form around so that we are eliminating the bad leads and keeping the good leads. And then retention, just an example there is more people. So at H&R Block, you can go there and do your taxes online. The majority of people who do their taxes online do not complete that process in the first sitting. So you go there, you start doing your taxes, and your phone rings or whatever, and you just have to come back and finish later. So you save your work and come back and finish. Their biggest problem is getting people to come back and finish so they can pay. So they have a retention issue. They want to get people, and they need to market to people who've already signed up, who've already started, and say, wait, come back and finish your taxes. So just some examples of where those things come into play.
One thing that we always run across, and John touched on it earlier, is we always have folks that come to us and say, I want to rank first on this term, or I want to get more traffic from paid search. And so, like he said, our first sort of step is let's take a look at your analytics. And we typically don't recommend folks go after a big acquisition campaign until we know that their conversion strategy's tight. And so, typically what we like to do is get analytics on the site, make sure the site is mechanically sound, that Google can see it the way the site owners want it to be seen, and then make sure that the users who come to the site aren't having massive problems before we go out and spend a bunch of money and spend a bunch of time trying to go get people to come into a broken site. Anything else to add to that side?
No?
Okay. So we'll just talk through some of the channels, some of the different digital marketing channels that are available to all you folks, and we'll get a little more deep on search here, but to start, like John said earlier, search in most cases is typically the biggest channel of customer acquisition for, I think, all of our clients. I can't think of one that it's not.
No.
And there's sort of two categories of search, right? There's paid search and organic search. And again, sorry if some of this is 101 for folks, but what you can see here, so in this example, we're searching for hybrid cars in Google, and you can see the yellow links that appear at the top of the page are paid ads. So in this case, GMC.com is actually buying the term hybrid cars on Google and paying Google on a cost per click basis to drive traffic back to the site. And then underneath the yellow is the organic search results. And so those are ads that Google has determined, and in this case, hybridcars.com actually outranks GMC for that particular term organically. And so just for point of reference, depends on who you read and what you read, but essentially from a search perspective, about 80% of your clicks will happen here in the organic space, right? People have learned to ignore the ads. That's not to say the ads aren't effective. They are. They're very effective. But you can sort of buy your way into the positions in the advertisements, although Google does evaluate sort of your quality as well in terms of ranking you on paid. But you have to have that domain authority to rank highly in the organic search results. And we'll talk more about search and how much more evolved it's gotten, but this is one of the fundamental channels, or two of the fundamental channels that you folks may want to consider.
By the way, before you move, I just want to point out one thing. When I talked about keep it simple, this is a pretty good example. A better example is if you go type in Toyota Prius and look at the results on that search term. But this is a pretty good example too, is that one thing that people overlook a lot is that, and you can do very simply and very quickly, is to make sure that you've described your page accurately to Google. And in this case, these pages have accurately described themselves for the term hybrid cars. Because you can see the word hybrid cars is in the title, the big underlined title there. It's in the, in most cases, it's in the URL. You can see down at the bottom, I know it's kind of small, but it says how stuff works and it ends with hybrid cars. I can't see the other one. Is that hybridcars.com or something?
Yes.
Okay, hybrid cars is definitely going to be in the little snippet of information that they pull out. So don't overlook the obvious, which is if you want to do well in search for the term hybrid cars, don't name everything alternative vehicles on that page. Just change it all to hybrid cars. Very simple, easy fix that people can do, and it's amazing how many people don't do that basic step of naming their pages what they want to be relevant for in a search engine.
John told me that he used to work at How Stuff Works, and he pulled this slide for this presentation. So just you can see that
It
they're
used
ranking
to be higher. I don't know if Wikipedia came along and just nailed those guys into the floor. But anyway.
Social channels. Obviously a lot of discussion and a lot of utilization probably in this room of social channels. Our experience with social is that we don't see traffic directly from social channels convert. So folks, we do work with a lot of folks, including this Wish Baby company here or Wish Baby Registry on Facebook. They're very active. I think they provide a lot of great content to their audience. We don't see that audience come over to the website and ultimately create baby registries and buy. That said, it's an important channel. Again, John and I are not brand marketers. We don't market emotionally. And so our recommendation when it comes to social channels is use it to build your organic search relevance, right? So the reason we say that, and John can elaborate on this a little bit more, but what we know to be true, like we talked about, Google has these million different attributes that they're looking at to determine how well you're going to rank organically and such. What we know to be true, and I think Eric Schmidt recently said some stuff about it, is that Google in the last, let's call it, year or so has really increased the weight of social signals, right? So when they hear people talk about your brand socially or see that, via Facebook or via Yelp or whatever it might be, that content is going to be considered more now than it has been in the past. And if you want to build on that a little bit.
No, that's really about it. I mean, especially for local businesses, social/local it's a very tricky space to play in, but it's very, very important. And certainly having some of these social networks activated is helpful, very helpful in search. For instance, that last graphic there is for Google+, and some of you may be using Google+ for Business or Google+ Local. The names of these services have changed many times over the last couple of years, but if you aren't using that now, and it's important for you to, you want to see a lot of information about your business in Google when people type your business name, you should probably start looking at getting yourself into Google+ for Business and Google Local. But those are two big social channels for Google. Google connects the dots that this is your website, this is your social platform on Google. We see you vouching for each other, and they give you some more weight and authority. It's not just somebody posting a comment about you and Google saying, I don't know if this is legit or not. I mean, they know that this is your social presence, this is your website, and those things work together in harmony.
From an organic search perspective, we weight Google+, and it may not be necessarily today, but we recommend to all our clients, go get your Google+ for Business page, go get your, whatever it's called today, Google Local, Google Places, Google Maps, whatever it might be. Go claim all of that stuff, link it to your business. It's going to help your organic search equity even more than perhaps a Facebook presence and a very active Facebook presence. So,
especially if you're one of those people who you were saying sometimes you look them up on your phone and you can't hit the call button. That's usually if someone had what's called Google Plus Local now account for their business, that information would be fed into Google, and you would see all those the directions buttons that pull up the map, call buttons that pull up the phone number, and keep those maintained. And don't make like 100 entries for the same business, and follow the guidelines of that service. But it's definitely a great local recommendation.
Are these just you're setting up your page and your information on there? You're not actually paying?
You're
Yeah.
not. It's a free service.
Yeah.
And by the way, John and I love free services, and we love free stuff from Google, and it's always typically from Google. It's very powerful. It's very integrated. And you're going to see some examples of these Google Plus places, local, whatever the du jour name is, integrated into search results. So we think if you do nothing else, go create a Google Plus for Business page. One sort of anecdote. I don't know why we're talking so much about restaurants, but so a friend of mine opened a.
We don't do any
I'm
work
not-
for any
no,
restaurant.
we-
They
right
just-
now
they just
there's
call
no-
us, right.
Right. A friend of mine had opened a restaurant in Chicago, and it used to, in Google Plus places, whatever it is, has gotten better about activating businesses. So you raise your hand and you say, I am Lake Forest Shop, and Google used to take a long time to validate that Lake Forest Shop was Google, the page that Ellen created was truly hers, and it took about 30 days, a long time ago. I think they've expedited that a little bit. But the point is, a friend of mine had opened a restaurant in the city. It used to be a former restaurant name, and so he calls me and I said, Ryan, the moment you sort of get your phone number, I think it was phone activated then, the moment you get it, you need to open your Google Places page because you need that map drop, right? When someone looks up, can't remember what the Boathouse, I can't remember what his restaurant's called now, but you need that map to show up and that pin to drop. And he called, sure enough, first day of business, he did it probably a week or so before his business opened, and first day of business, when someone typed in his business name, he wasn't getting that map drop, and he was in a panic, and it hurt his business ultimately, right? Folks driving around the city looking for him, and they couldn't find it on Google because he did not have his Plus for Business page activated. Other social
Nope.
chat?
I mean, just to put a bow on it, though, I mean, I want to be clear, we don't do a whole lot of social because 9 times out of 10, it's a waste of money for people. In our opinion, and that's not a popular opinion, but we deal more in outcomes, and we say, does this social channel drive more sales, more leads, more people to the website? And they don't. People on social networks are there to network with each other and socialize with their friends, and they aren't in a conversion frame of mind that we've seen, at least with most of our clients. Just one last second. I do think for some companies, it's extremely important. I mean, for Discovery, it was very, very important. I mean, the Man vs. Wild, Facebook page probably has 8 million people. We tell them to go do something, they go do something. And tell them to come play a game on the site, they do it. But for 95% of people, social is typically someplace where they're investing a lot of time and resources, and it doesn't pay the dividend. That does not take into account, another thing about sort of the difference between our companies and maybe different types of agencies, is we don't take into account the branding of, effect, the positioning, the messaging, more of the, as I like to say, the, how many angels fit on the head of a pen. We say, we don't say, if you're on a social network, people are going to see you more often. Even though they're clicking to your site, your brand is out there, you guys have to take that into account for yourself. What we deal with is, does that channel drive sales and does it drive new business? And from what we've seen, it really doesn't. Yes?
Just kind of touching on the social aspect of the website, I've noticed more and more that a lot of websites now have the Tumblr, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter widgets in the bottom.
Yeah.
And that just kind of spawns off more, identity for your brand.
Sure.
Also, is that necessary though? I mean, for me, that's just a whole nother avenue. I have a Facebook page, and I've been kind of working that because I'm very small.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that I can manage it myself.
Sure.
But how important is that? And if it's not relevant to what you do, I understand. But I've noticed so much about Pinterest, Tumblr, Twitter. It's just like I need to hire staff just to do that part.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
And I think that's where a lot of smaller businesses and larger businesses get into trouble, is that a lot of these exercises take a lot of time and resources. I mean, we were just talking earlier about a blog. you know, it's just, I mean, a lot of people wake up in the morning who have small businesses and go, you know what, this would be a lot better if I had a blog. And they think that it's not gonna be a problem to write a blog post every couple of days. And I mean, if any of you have done that, I'm sure some of you have tried it, you get about 3 weeks down the road and you're like, I don't ever wanna write another word as long as I live. It's very time consuming and much more time consuming than you thought. Same with social. Maintaining a lot of social channels can be very challenging if you don't have the budget to hire somebody to do it all for you. And there are plenty of companies out there now that will do it for you. They'll talk like you, they'll pretend like they're you, and they'll represent you on every channel. I would say, you know, it is kind of important to have those things. Again, it's sort of weird, but from a search perspective. We want, when Google comes into your website, we want them to see that you are active on social networks. It doesn't matter if you're terribly active, but some activity at least shows that you have open communications with a number of social channels and you're participating in the social community. Again, we use it as a signal to Google to help with organic search, not so much as a way to drive more traffic or create more brand awareness.
So does Google look at how many likes you have?
I mean, again, it's that speculation, but I would say definitely. I mean, but does Google look more at how many people are in your Google Plus circles? I mean, I think, personally, I think people are concentrating too much on Facebook these days and not concentrating enough on Google Plus, Google's own product. And Google Plus is actually picking up a lot of ground against Facebook right now. Yeah.
I'm sorry, just coming back to Carrie's question.
Sure.
If you would rank after, how would you rank the social media in importance as far as interaction with small businesses?
You mean the importance of you maintaining it?
Yes, being involved. I mean, would it be Google Plus, Facebook,
Pinterest.
Pinterest?
I think so, but I don't have any
Yeah,
data to support this.
depending on what it is that you do specifically.
I think for you, Pinterest is
Yeah, Pinterest
so
may have more, depending on the type of business that you have. You know, Pinterest isn't going to do anything for our client that makes air filters, you know, but if you have, you know,
Well, when you look at the large number of women using it, and if you have
That too.
anything branded toward women.
Sure.
You know, I was at a family gathering over the weekend, and anyone between the ages of 18 and 40, oh, did you see this recipe? Oh my gosh, this cute outfit was on here. And it's just like, my husband's like, what in the heck are they looking at? I'm like, you're not on Pinterest. I mean, if you're marketing to women, you can click the cute ideas, whether it's from your shop or somebody else, or here's a neat trend. And people cross-post, and they really, really are driven by that, more than I ever expected.
and here's where,
Sale.
exactly, that's what I was about to say. Here's where the conversation gets gray.
Copying images. I mean, I
Yeah.
have the brides that come, I ask them now when I have appointments for brides, I say, can you send me the link to your Pinterest page so I can see what your wedding inspiration is?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're gonna take my word.
Right.
They're bringing ideas that they found from other people that they want me to do.
Mhm.
It's about what service you're creating, not about what your product is.
Pinterest plays more into branding and marketing rather than transaction conversion,
All right.
which is key when we're talking about all that stuff. It's about big picture, marketing, branding, not necessarily transaction. You know, Coke doesn't put a billboard, spend $1 gazillion on billboards all over the country to convert a sale. It's about brand recognition and marketing on a bigger picture, which is why Pinterest is so successful and can be ridiculously influential.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, I want to be clear that, that's, what you're talking about is for sure. And we do work with a lot of those brands, and sometimes it's not a good fit for us. We are much more concerned with transactions. And by transaction, I don't mean selling something, but the reason you built a website or you're thinking about building a website, whatever you think is going to happen and whatever you want to happen, we want to drive more people to do that thing. And from what we've seen in the numbers, the social channels do not typically drive that. And one of the interesting things, to your comment about you're at a party and everybody there is saying, did you see it on Pinterest? That's where I think the conversation gets gray for us, because sure, everyone's talking about Pinterest. From your conversations at the party, it sounds like everybody's on Pinterest. But when we look on the websites that they're visiting, they aren't coming from Pinterest. Now, yes, you can say, and brands do this all the time. They make the connection. I mean, I work with McDonald's. I mean, they make these connections between, like, we put a bunch of ads on TV and put a bunch of billboards out there and our sales go up, you know, that's got to be connected somehow. We just don't have the data to prove that. And actually, McDonald's doesn't even have a ton of the data to prove that. McDonald's recently did a program with Facebook where they wanted to prove the influence of social media. And they said, you know, they came to the conclusion that Facebook, you know, does drive sales, although whether it was ROI positive is yet to be seen. What they did was they bought all the ad inventory on Facebook in San Diego for a month, meaning every single ad that's shown on Facebook to anybody who's in San Diego was a McDonald's ad. And then they looked at their numbers, and their growth in sales in San Diego went up 5%. Now, I don't know what 5% of San Diego sales is. I assume it's a lot of money. But I can tell you what all the ad inventory in San Diego for a month is more money. So, you know, again, we deal with numbers, and you know, the branding is important, and people talk about it. Sorry for this digression, but it's an important thing to talk about. Here's where I think, and I'm not saying anything negative about the larger agencies, because they're essential. If you have a big multinational company, you need to be with, you don't need to be with John, right? You need to be with a big agency who can handle it for you. And there are good ones and bad ones. But I'll tell you where an agency is really essential. Let's say you're Procter & Gamble, and you go to a digital agency, and that digital agency recommends to you that during the Olympics, you buy all of the Twitter ad inventory during the Olympic Games at night. Their logic is that you're going to be seeing these heartwarming Procter & Gamble commercials that are on about your daughter who's the ballerina or the gymnast or whatever, and then people are going to get on Twitter while they're watching the Olympics, and they're going to communicate, and the ads they're going to see are going to be Procter & Gamble ads. You know, to me, that's brilliant. I mean, they're saturating you with that brand. Now, at the end of the day, Procter & Gamble doesn't care whether anybody goes to their website. Yes, they have a website. Yes, this is a digital channel that they're operating in, but it's not the kind of outcomes that John and I deal with. Does that make sense? We think we're probably more targeted, we're more in the small business mindset, which is, I'm running a business, I need to make more money, I need to get more people in here, I need to get more people to do this thing. And it's hard for us to, with a straight face, to say, you know, you need to put $50,000 into Facebook. When at the end of the day, we're not going to be able to come back to you and show you that that really paid off. So, anyway.
What you're saying about Facebook is what we found. Absolutely.
And I think you'll find that, you know, 90% of the
We
people
get
that you
all
talk
these
to will say the
wonderful
same thing.
positive
Right,
comments.
right.
Oh, love it. Facebook, da-da-da-da.
Sure.
And I said, well, why don't you come in?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Come on in.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, I will.
I don't want to be too hard on it. I mean, it's an important channel. That's where people are. You know, you want to market where the people are, and they're all on
I think Pinterest, though, Pinterest for her business, you know, I saw an ad in Vogue for a skirt.
Yeah.
I searched for it on Pinterest so I could save these skirts.
Yeah.
And then I clicked on it, went to Neiman Marcus, and I bought the skirt.
Oh,
So I think for women's clothing, getting every piece of your key clothing on Pinterest so people can share it, and then a link to your website, I think there's a huge value in that.
You know, I think you're right,
A
too.
saving perspective. Because I see a lot of the shoes that I put on Pinterest are sold out.
Yeah.
They're always sold out. Everything's sold out because people are going from Pinterest to clothing.
I think that might be true for a Neiman Marcus. I mean, I've never looked at their analytics, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had for the amount of money they put into Pinterest, which is probably minimal, because a lot of people post their own stuff up to Pinterest. They're kind of doing their own marketing for them. But I would imagine, I'm guessing, their return on investment on Pinterest at Neiman Marcus is pretty good. Same with, I know that companies like local companies are big, but local companies here like CB2 and Crate and Barrel, I know that they do get some pretty good high conversion traffic from Pinterest. Again, I'm just saying 9 times out of 10. Is that where you want to place your bets? We rarely would make that recommendation. I can almost guarantee you, for everyone in this room, if you came to us and said, what are the 5 things I should do with my website, social wouldn't even, I mean, with the exception of starting a Google Plus local page, social wouldn't be in there for any of you. I'd be very surprised.
I'm just going to add my final comments, and then we
Then
need
we're
to
out
move
of
on.
time?
Well, we're getting out of time. But so I think two things is there are syndicated tools out there that allow you to post in one place and have it syndicated to Pinterest, Facebook, et cetera. So if you're active in those channels and you're going to provide that, add this widget, you know, on your website that lets them touch all these different sites, you can syndicate one central place and have the stuff go out. I think that just like email marketing, and I agree with John, data doesn't lie, we don't see it. But that said, I think because you guys are local businesses and we don't deal with many businesses that are as local as I believe most of you guys are, I think that access to the networks available to you and visibility into those networks are going to be important, and they're relatively free. The one thing that I would say about Facebook is that, or Google Plus or whatever it is that keeping your brand in front of people is important no matter what business you're in, because Craig Pearson, my lawyer friend, you know, he posted something about when the fiscal cliff decisions were made, you know, that was very relevant, very timely, and he posted that on Facebook and LinkedIn and such, and wound up getting some business out of it. But the point is, my wife may only need a dress from your store once a year. When she's in that buying mode, your brand has to be top of mind. And so that may happen through Facebook. To your point, all your stories are no one's coming into the store, but I think it's keeping your brand in front of people so when they're in the buying decision mode, they remember your brand. That said, we don't see it convert in the data, and we've got a huge deck to get through. So,
I'm not going to say. I just want to give, because we talked about the lingo and jargon. Because you asked about it, I just want to give you one more piece of jargon. That thing you're talking about when you have all your logos down there for Twitter and Facebook, we call it a shout box. So when you're referring to your website, you're saying, "Do I need a shout box on there?" That would be something that had all your little social icons on it. Just another little piece of lingo.
we could talk about social all day. Conversion, right? So we you know, they say let's build a better mousetrap, right? And we don't want to go out and buy or acquire a lot of traffic until we know that our mousetrap works. And so, and like John had said, there's a bunch of different methods for improving upon conversion, and you know, some easy ones, and easy ones that are actually fairly easy to implement. Testing, so homepage testing, right? There's sort of, we talk about conversion funnels, right? People start at the top of the funnel and come out the other end, presumably land on the homepage and come out on the shopping cart. But so we like to look at various places along the conversion funnel and experiment with those funnels and determine, you know, what's our objective here and what's going to be the sort of net goal of this experiment. And so just a quick example of what you're seeing here. This is a company that John and I work with on the left. It's a storage company. They own a whole series of storage facilities in the Southeast, and they had built this new website, and they felt that, you know, it's very important for our website visitors to be talked to just like our customers, the way we talk to our customers. And we run our customers when they call on the phone, are they new to storage or are they expert storage people? And that was important to them, and it suited their brand, et cetera. So they launched with the top version of the homepage there. They had a great site, it was highly effective, but John and I saw that folks who were visiting the homepage weren't going through these funnels, these newbie expert funnels, right? What they were doing is, you can't even see it, but there's a small search box, find location box up in the right-hand corner. So those folks that were completing the desired goal, the rent, the unit, et cetera, were using that discrete search box more often than they were going through this channel that is, you know, the homepage dedicated a lot of real estate to. So we suggested, hey, why not build a second version of the page that just features find your location? Let's put 50% of the traffic on your original, 50% of the traffic on the variation page, the search page, and let's see which one results in more people renting storage units from you. And so and they wrestled with it internally because they didn't think that suited their brand. Well, every storage place, you know, allows for this search functionality. We're different than every other storage company. The dollars didn't lie, sure enough. The variation treatment blew it away, like, you know, 4 to 1. And so now they're still wrestling with it. Do they want to make more money or do they want to support their brand? But A/B testing. Very easy to set up in Google Analytics. If you have Google Analytics on your site, also free, powerful, super easy, super fun to watch if you're a geek. And then, so that's sort of top of the funnel optimization or conversion optimization. Then we look at things like bottom of the funnel optimization. So you're now in the shopping cart And in this case, what, you want to talk about Patagonia? 'Cause
Yeah, just really briefly. So Patagonia used to have a 4-step checkout process where you add your thing to the cart, you enter your shipping information, and then there's a little check box that says my billing information is the same as my shipping information. If you didn't check that check box, they made you go to another screen and fill out your billing information, and then another screen to confirm your order, and then you check out. Just by so we saw people who checked the box that said my billing address is the same as my shipping address, they were getting through the shopping cart much faster than the people who got the extra screen. So the simple solution was let people enter their stuff on that page. Because when you switch pages, first of all, it slows you down, so you have more pages you have to go through. Also, there's a chance that there'd be some sort of technical hiccup. We're talking about every month about 40,000 people start checking out at Patagonia. And it pretty much breaks down to about half and half are the shipping address is the same and, or shipping address isn't the same. And we ended up saving about 1,000 visit delta by closing that up. And what that meant was at an average cart value of $150 at Patagonia, each month they're picking up an additional $150,000 for a very simple fix. So a couple of good ways to, I know we actually don't work with that many e-commerce companies, but you get the concepts, is that testing is the best way to improve things on your site.
Then there's visitor retention, right? And so a couple of examples from some local folks, some of whom are in the room here. Some friends of ours own the Lake Bluff Brewing Company, and they're very active on email, they're very active on Facebook. I think they do a nice job sort of keeping their audience, they're informed of events at the brew pub. Ellen from Lake Forest Shop is very active as a blogger and has some events coming up, I think yesterday,
Right now,
I guess.
today.
Oh, today, there you go. After this, go to her store.
Yes.
And then, and Carrie on Facebook and from Bloom and Focus. And so just one story socially about Carrie's Facebook presence. I had seen someone, a woman I think who attended a class, I had seen someone comment on Facebook, and that exposed her business to me. And I walked into her store and I felt like I had been there because I had seen this particular picture. So there was some brand effect that she got from that post. There's RSS feeds, and I heard someone in the room talk about, I subscribe to your feed, and there's other sort of retention channels. But the point here is you now have a relationship with these folks. Presumably you have their email address, they like you on Facebook, they follow you on Twitter, whatever it is. The goal here is to keep your brand in front of them and ultimately invite them back to transact with you.
And you should have, if you are using email, one of the things we've seen is email converts very well. A lot of people like to herald the end of email marketing, but I'm telling you, email marketing still works for most people, and it's a very high conversion channel. And if it's something that you see is working for you, and you can see that when you put analytics on your site, or if you already have analytics, and you can see how many people come in from email and convert. If you see it working for you, take the time to sit down and think about your email marketing strategy. To me, that would be much more important than spending a lot of time thinking about how to execute against a social strategy.
Second highest converting channel that we see typically is email. First being direct, someone who comes directly to your site. So it's, like John said, extremely effective. You need to be thoughtful. You don't want to burn people out. You don't want them to unsubscribe. To his point about calendaring and planning your events, segment if you can. So like talked about Carrie's business, right? She has 3 lines of business, the sort of session shots, and then let's say the fine arts business. She may want to have an email that just speaks to her session shots customers, an email that speaks to her fine art customers, an email that speaks to her class attendees.
That's called segmentation.
Segmentation.
So the email process, do you recommend Constant Contact?
Yes.
Sure. Or MailChimp, both cheap, kind of $10 a month, and offer some very sophisticated tracking. They'll also publish some of your content directly to your site. They're both great. Who do you like for email?
Well, I'm with Lake Bluff Baseball. I'm on the board. So we evaluated both, and because we're not-for-profit and so forth, we felt MailChimp as actually a free for a lot of sense. Constant Contact has a restriction on how many you can send. So we chose MailChimp.
I've heard other reporting elements of MailChimp are better than Constant Contact. They're both fairly easy to use, have decent looking templates, offer good tracking.
Yeah, MailChimp also has the ability to, I've never used it, but it has the ability to create curated emails. So if you said, I don't have time to like develop, rich content for all my emails, you could just create an email that's, here are all the links I've seen during the week that are interesting, and send it out to, that relate to my industry. Like you might curate all the baseball stories that were interesting this week or whatever. It's a real quick way to create a weekly or monthly email. I haven't used it, but I know MailChimp has it, and Constant Contact does it.
Mail.
Chimp.
Chimp.
Yeah,
Like
like monkey.
chimpanzee.
Yeah.
So maybe it was
Yeah.
checked.
Yeah. I don't love the name either, but
Well, and they're in with SurveyMonkey now, so you can use
Yeah.
web analytics back and forth between.
Sheryl Sandberg's husband.
oh right.
Yeah, the tools, just while he's switching slides, the tools out there now are all so cheap, and if you have the means, and if you had the developers who could make the tiny little changes to your site, I would encourage you to try a lot of these tools because they're all super easy to use and very powerful, even like SurveyMonkey and things like that. Everything's $10 a month these days.
I'm going to try to do this quickly, but what I want to do, and John will help with this, is the anatomy of a search results page has changed quite a bit over the last couple of years, 3 years at minimum. So I want to just quickly sort of walk through a couple of different search engine results page, and so and just sort of talk about the different elements on the page. So, and Ellen, sorry to pick on you all day here, but I'm searching. What isn't necessarily displayed here is that Google knows I'm searching from Lake Forest. They know I'm searching from Chicago. Wherever this is, it's here in town is the point. And so I search on her brand, Lake Forest Shop, right? So this is a branded search, and John touched on the Advil example of there's a ton of traffic coming into Advil on branded search, but not a lot on unbranded search. Those sort of headache, arthritis symptoms, whatever it might be, Advil can't rank on that because Mayo Clinic does and NIH does. They can't beat them, but on their brand, they beat them. Ellen owns her brand, and she does a great job with her organic search display, right? She's doing some pretty fancy stuff here. So you can see that, underneath her, so first she has the title, the thing that appears in blue, the page title. That's Google's pulling that directly from her website. Of course, the URL in green below it. Then there's the snippet, the Google snippet. In this case, Google, it appears that they're pulling the snippet maybe from your menu. And so you may want to try to refine your description there to say, I offer great dresses for these occasions, or whatever it might be.
You can craft that language yourself.
Or top.
Whatever it is.
Hey, John, it's a laser pointer too, by the way.
Oh, it is? Cool.
The red button.
Whoops. Awesome.
The other button.
Okay, so here's her address. This is coming out of her Google plus local places, whatever it is. But that's being added to her organic search result. Then she's added these things right in here. These are called site links, and this is also fairly easy to do. But so what she's doing is, what actually Google is doing is identifying secondary pages on her site that are most frequently visited. She can tailor those if she doesn't want special occasions to appear in that site link. She can ask Google not to make that display. But the neat thing about those site links is, look at all the real estate she's consuming on the page, right? And that's, all of this is organic, with this exception right here. This is coming from Google+. This right here, this is all coming from Google+. Look at this giant real estate, it's awesome. So again, get your Google+ page. Now here's another, so that's in purple, let's call that the Google organic results that she's getting on her brand. In red here, this is all social stuff. So back to that point of Google paying more attention to social signals, you can see she has a review from Yelp here, who you may want to look at that review if you haven't. And so the point is, people talking about her in the social network is actually ranking high. Now I took another example, so a search term, again, here based in Chicago, I have my settings, and I'm looking at real estate lawyers, right? So the sort of anatomy of this page is much different than Ellen's page, and so what you can see here is all this stuff, whoops, all this stuff in green boxes, these are all people buying the term real estate attorneys, right? So it's very competitive. No one bought your brand. No one is buying your brand. You may want to buy your brand just so you always have that first position. It doesn't seem like a problem for you, though. Anyways, very competitive space for real estate lawyers. Most of the real estate on this page is being purchased by real estate lawyers. But here, so the top organic results I think you call this a six-pack?
I call it a 7-pack.
7-pack.
There's usually 7 results in there when you see that, but those are all pulled from, Google Local and Google Plus.
The interesting thing about the 7-pack though too is that you can see 4 Google reviews, here's the Google Plus page, here's the Google Plus page. So again, Google looking for that relationship between your website, the search query, and whether or not you have a Google Plus page. So again, that's why we're sort of stretching and pushing the Plus page.
Well, and it's important to note that because 2 years ago, when this wasn't happening, we would have made every effort to say, well, we want to make your page, your homepage rank for the term, for the term real estate lawyer. And we're going to concentrate on modifying your homepage and changing the link architecture of your site, stuff that would be very complicated. Getting more inbound links pointing in on that term to you, a very aggressive SEO strategy to do this. Whereas now, it wouldn't even matter because you don't even see an organic result, a normal organic result. All you see are these things that were pulled from Google+.
So keywords aren't as important as they used to be?
No, I think they definitely
They're
are.
important, they're important, but not like we used to weigh them before.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we're away from the how many times is the keyword on your page stuff.
Yeah.
But you certainly want to have, like I said, if you are selling hypercars, you want to have the word hypercars in your title and on your page and in your body copy.
I guarantee every one of these lawyers has the word real estate lawyer
on
in their
site.
Google Plus
Never
page.
a plus page,
That's right.
okay.
Okay, I'm going to move through this quickly. This is really sort of weedy, but semi-important, is that, so now I've changed my settings. There happens to be a Lake Forest, California, right? So I changed my settings to see, well, how will Ellen's branded search term do in Lake Forest, California? So now Google thinks I'm in Lake Forest, California, and the short answer is she still does great, right? She still ranks in the first position. Notice that her Google Plus, or little map has gone away, but now look, again, here's all these now California-based businesses that Google think may be relevant for the term Lake Forest shop. Interestingly, there's some car repair places here, but all being pulled organically. And point is, your search results page vary by your location.
Can I just say one thing here too, is that especially for those of you who are going to be dependent on Google, they're seeing a lot of your organic traffic coming from these localized searches, it can drive you nuts. It can be very frustrating because you might find that while you're in your, at your shop and you're searching for, your name, you come up first in that 7-pack or whatever, and then you go home and you search for it and you don't see yourself there. Or somebody calls you and says, I was looking you up online, I couldn't find it. And then your first call will be to the person who's doing SEO for you saying, I don't show up in search, what's happening? All that stuff is done by location too. So if the farther you are, Google knows exactly where you are when you're searching. And they are going to look at what shop, if you type in muffler repair, they're going to look for muffler repair shops that are near your location. So if you're a little further away than somebody else, now you move closer to your muffler location or whatever, those search results are going to change. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time worrying yourself about it. But to John's point, depending on where you are, the local texture of the results is going to change dramatically.
And that goes with your IP address too, right? So if you're at your house and you're not telling Google that you're in
Right.
Lake Forest, Illinois, the IP address actually knows where you're at, right?
Yeah, it's actually very frustrating. Sometimes when we're on the call with, we're on a conference call with clients, and they're in Chicago, and we say, oh, we made this change, go look in search results, you'll see this. And like, I don't see it. And then we find out that their company is connected to a network in New York, and they see, they type in bagel company, and it shows up, bagels in New York. So we have to tell people to change the settings on their browsers, right?
But likewise, we'll change our browser settings to appear as though we're searching from China because someone, one of our customers may want to be relevant for search terms in China. Just again, quickly, like we talked about, explosive growth in mobile. We see as much as 40% of site traffic coming in on mobile, more on email and such. But so also important to talk about search results on the mobile phone. And this also gets into right here. You can see, most of this presentation, first position organic, is coming from the Google Plus or Places implementation that Lake Forest shop put in place. Also, she has her, ranks first in her standard organic position here. Likewise, so sort of same artifact here that we saw on the laptop or the computer-based search here for attorneys. Same concept here. Guys are buying it. You have to buy it. Recommendations. We're already 2 minutes
Are we out of
over. So, we're okay? All right, so first recommendation.
I'm gonna go real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, presumably, most of you have websites. If you don't, you should build one, or for some of you who already have them, you should move to a different platform because you're trapped in something that, you know, costs you a lot of money to maintain. These days, two website platforms, WordPress and Drupal, have something like 80% market share, and they're free, which is great. And because they have such market share, and because they started as blog platforms, there are so many people out there that know how to develop for these two platforms that your long-term costs of maintaining and operating your website is going to be drastically reduced. So if you haven't built a website, consider one of these two platforms. You can probably find a kid at DePaul to build a site for you for super cheap. And it's going to be world-class. There are huge companies that are on these two platforms. I mean, the White House is on Drupal. There's, you know, plenty of people on WordPress. So between the two of them, that's the way to go. Let's move since we...
Yep.
You want me to keep talking?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Put analytics on your website for sure. I know we've talked a lot about analytics, but you know, it's the only thing that's going to help you. You know, right now, some of you are spending money buying traffic through paid search, or buying traffic through banner ads, or paid links, or sending out emails and putting things on Facebook. John's going to talk a little bit in the next slide about how to measure this stuff a little bit better. But the first step is get analytics in place so that you can see things like, oh, I see that Google organic search drives $570,000 worth of revenue for me. Or I see that, what's that one down the bottom? That's highlighted?
Some Yahoo site, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but some Yahoo site is driving 1,400. So you can start to identify what are the most effective channels for you.
Well, and the point, I think, of this sort of screen cut from analytics is that, like John said, it allows you to evaluate your channels, so Google organic, you know, the total revenue contribution, but it also breaks down your per visit value, so you can determine sort of who are my best, my highest value channels, right? And so in this case, this is an e-commerce site that we work with, and so it's really easy to see that, you know, Google organic and direct are the highest value customers. Here's a channel that's only driving 15 cents per visit, where Google organic and direct are driving, let's call it $12 per visit. So a recommendation here would be, whatever you're doing to get these 10,000 folks to your site, it's probably not worth it.
Well, you know, and one thing, when you set up analytics, the next thing you want to do is set up goals. And goals are very simple to set up in analytics. It's really just, give me the name of the page that identifies somebody completed the action. So thank you for submitting your email. Thank you for your order. You know, someone will be in touch with you soon. Whatever that page is at the end of the sequence that you want people to hit, that's your goal. You can also do a goal of, it's a goal, show me a goal visit if somebody looks at more than 5 pages or spends more than 5 minutes on my site. You can set up any number of goals. And when you set them up in analytics, all of a sudden then you can correlate everything to that goal. So you can say, show me which channels drive you know, multiple page views on my site. Show me which channels drive you know, contact us form submissions. And it's a way to quickly dive in. Because without goals, you're basically just looking at traffic. Oh, I know I had a bunch of visits and a bunch of page views and, you know, this many people from mobile. I mean, it's interesting. But at the end of the day, we want to know, well, what type of visitor actually completes my goal? Where did that visitor come from who completes my goal? Because those are the channels where you want to focus your money and your time. And that's what we say when we look at people's analytics. If you were looking at this output, you would see, and maybe he's got it in here, does he have any Facebook or any social? Okay, so social is not even remotely a channel in his top 10. I mean, I'm guessing that for most people, the top 10 sources of traffic are 95% of all the traffic. So let's say he's got Facebook somewhere in here. It's a low traffic. But this is the type of, and then we could correlate Facebook to say, well, how many people, not only how many visits did you get from Facebook, how many people from Facebook actually hit the contact page? How many people actually looked at more pages? So you can really evaluate the quality of that traffic. This is a big recommendation, by the way. I mean, this is the number one.
One of the first things we do when we look at someone's analytics is look to see what goals they have configured. And so that sort of tells us how sophisticated they are in terms of their digital marketing prowess. But just to summarize, we got a little sort of weedy there, that the main point of goals is it helps you isolate your best customers, and then you can go sort of look at how those customers arrive to you and just repeat that recipe, double down on if you find that folks coming in on these terms are more likely to take a goal action than folks who come in on these terms, double down on the good terms.
Yeah, and there's probably some sort of, I don't want to talk about it, there's probably some sort of offline correlation. I mean, if you know that, you know, teenagers buy the most stuff in your store and everything, that's kind of the correlation we make. We want to be able to identify this is the way you do it online. This is the way you identify people, because you can't see them. So we can only tell by their behaviors. And anyway.
And that's why John was talking about why search is so rich, because we can tell the term that drove the user to the site. That gives us insight into what their intent is, right? So that when you find that they come in on a buy fine art photography term, you know, and that person who comes in on that term is more likely to purchase from you, that may inform the way you email market to people and the language you use when you craft emails. Another recommendation is tag everything. So if you are creating links back to your site, which presumably you are through Facebook and email and such, tag it. It's called campaign tagging. If you look up campaign tagging in Google, the first thing that will come up will be a Google URL builder, this little tool that I'm showing right here, right? And so it's just essentially adding a little bit more information. You give them, okay, I want people to land on this page. I want them to land on my cocktail attire page, and I want to note that I put this link in my email, and it's the red button that appears in the right-hand corner, and it was launched on this date. Right, so you can add these sort of other attributes. So then after launching 10 or 12 emails, you can determine which of the links, which of the content pieces in my email drove the most effective folks back to my site. You correlate that back to your goals, and you can really begin to sort of isolate on who your best customers are.
Let me tell you one more thing about campaign tagging. I know it sounds really technical and weedy. The importance of it, especially for anybody who's really considering social, is that so if today, if you put a post, put something into Facebook, and you put a link back to your website, in your analytics, we would see anybody who clicked on that link from Facebook. We'd say, okay, you got this many visits from that person. If you put a campaign tag on it, what we see is, let's say I see the link in Facebook, and I email that link to a couple of friends of mine, and then those people open their email and click on that link. Without a campaign tag, I'm going to see in your analytics that somebody came from email, even though the original source of that was something you posted on Facebook. So you haven't now seen, with the campaign tag, when they click on their email, it's still going to fire back and say, this is Facebook. So now we know the full reach of your social marketing. So it's very important. And what John was saying about emails, when you send out an email, if you put tags on all the little elements, like you have something that says 20% off, and you have another thing that says read the story about our founder, and click to read more and click to get 20% off, we can start to see by tagging those things specifically which element gets the most clicks. So we can start to refine the email message until you get to the point where you know what people are going to click on and you know what they're interested in. Because if you're putting those stories in your email and it's like nobody's clicking on them, nobody's reading them, stop putting those stories in. It's probably taking you too much time to do it anyway.
So here's just a quick example of campaign tagging in the field. We work with, I referenced it earlier, a company called Wish Baby Registry, and their goal is to get pregnant women to come into their site or their physical store in Chicago and create a baby registry, and then ultimately have people purchase off that registry, right? So one of the channels that they've identified is an email list, essentially, that they're buying for, it's called The Bump. And so the email list is targeted by Metro, and so we wanted to see, are moms in Washington, D.C. more likely to create a registry than, or expecting moms in Washington, D.C. more likely to create a registry than moms in Detroit, right? And so we campaign tagged, so we said, hey, in your D.C. email, put this tag in, right? And the only difference between the two tags is one says D.C. at the end. And so what we found is that, sure, the D.C. women are more likely to convert and create registries than the Detroit women. And so at the end of the day, our customer can go back and evaluate his return on investment because he understands how much he paid for Detroit and how much he paid for DC, and use that to either determine whether it's a successful buy or not successful buy.
And it's pretty slick because then you're not getting, with the people who are selling the bump list are saying, we're going to send you all the metros. And you're saying, no, I'll just take Detroit. You know exactly what you're getting for your return on your investment.
A little bit of legwork goes a long ways.
Suggest that there's an email registry from Lake Bluff and Lake Forest that could be accessed.
Yes, definitely suggest that. My guess is, that's a whole different conversation about tracking and what people know about you and how they can target you. But yes, my guess is if I want to send an email to you, I could probably figure out a way, even though I've never met you, to email you.
So we did, I'm with Midtown Athletic Club.
Yep.
And I just recently started buying email lists through a company
Yep.
that geo-targets based on income, home value, all of that.
Sure.
And then they send me their analytics.
Yep.
And because our website is a corporate website with all of our locations, I was just actually talking about this yesterday, the buck stops at some point, because I know 684 clicks came to our
Right.
website, but I don't know what happened to them from there. Would our corporate office, if they set this up properly, be able to tell me that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, yeah, as a matter of fact, depending on, what analytics system they're using, they should be able to go in, if you ask the right question, they should be able to tell you right now. My guess is they can ferret that information out.
And this sounds geeky and complex. It's super easy. It's just discipline is the short answer on it. So when you go buy those lists, you need to give them unique URLs every time, but they're only going to be slightly unique. And it'll give you the, hey, when I target $50,000 plus, I do better than if I target $25,000 people.
And if you give John your card, if they need something.
I will not do it for you.
No, but John will look at Midtown Athletic Club, find out what analytics system they're using, and help you craft
Sure.
the email to what you want to send them to say, hey, I bought the list and it came in this way. Can you tell me what came out on the other end? And he'll probably be able to get you that answer. Sorry to volunteer you.
Thank you.
Well, I might become a client, so.
There you go.
Great. Data is power. Okay, another recommendation is, and John said eat your peas, he says do your knitting, whatever you want to call it, do your research. Understand how people are looking for your business or trying to find your business or trying to find your products or services. And there are a lot of free tools out there that give you an unbelievable amount of information about what people are searching for, what your competitors are buying, how often they change creative.
Seasonality, search terms.
It's mind-blowing, and so at minimum, understand your space. And so there's within Google AdWords, also a free tool, there's something that's called the Google AdWords keyword tool. If you look that up on Google, it will be the first result. And so what I did here, again, picking on Ellen, is I looked up special occasion. So I think I asked Google AdWords to show me words that they think Ellen's site should go after based on the term sophisticated cocktail attire. I don't know anything about women's fashion. Sorry if I'm butchering the terms that they may use. But so one thing that came up is, that I thought might be interesting for you is special occasion dresses. What we now know is that the competition is high, but we have fairly significant search volume on it. 61,000 people a month search on that term here in the United States.
Local will be U.S., by the way, not local.
Local's U.S. Yeah, that's right. So the point is, this information at least can give you some relative basis for how frequently your target search terms could be, which will then inform the content that you create, the words that you use in your email, the pages that you build, your URL structures, etc. So also free, powerful Google.
And especially, if I can just say one last thing, especially if you're in a really competitive space, looking for alternative, ways to, for instance, if you were selling, iPhones, you have no chance of ranking in Google for it because you go Google the word iPhones, it's dominated by huge players who have tons of content and tons of history with this subject. But you might do a search on what are some related terms. You might find, iPhone cases for tweens. That might be something you can rank for. They may also have a lot of traffic. They may not be competitive. So a lot of times doing these keyword search might point you in a different direction for other ways to get more traffic.
In Google, the tools do a nice job making recommendations for you, even categorizing those recommendations for you now. It's pretty powerful stuff. There's another tool out there called SpyFu. Some access of it is free, but it will tell you who's buying your terms, what your competitors are spending. Also a tool that I'd recommend you take a look at, not listed here. Social, I think we talked about probably, yeah. So get your Google Plus for Business page and then link the two between your sites, right? To Carrie's point about that, what was your fancy term for the?
Rel Publisher tab?
No, the add this widget.
Shout box?
The shout box.
Right.
Get your little shout boxes on your site so folks can make the connection, like you on Google Plus when they're visiting your site. Make it easy. Okay, this is the final slide, and I know we're a couple minutes over, but so a couple of other considerations, and some of this we've already talked about. Email. Get email addresses from your customers, right? Get email addresses from your prospects. Give them a reason to give you an email. Even better, give them a reason to tell you something more about themselves than your email. Find out what genre of books they like, what type of workouts they like to have, that type of stuff. Try to segment your emails to your users' interests. So like we talked about earlier, generally the second highest converting channel. And tag your emails. When you send them out, put the campaign tags in them. Mobile. Get some type of mobile strategy. At minimum, obviously, your Plus for Business page will give you some relevance on mobile search. But think about the mobile experience, because we are seeing explosive growth in and on websites. Like I said, we're now seeing upwards of 50% of site visits on heavy consumer sites that we work on, like Mayo Clinic, are coming in on mobile devices. Think about your website experience on mobile. Think about your email, how your email is consumed on mobile, because my guess is most of the emails that you guys will send will be consumed on mobile devices. Nearly all of the Facebook stuff you guys are doing is being consumed on mobile devices. 80% of all Facebook traffic on mobile. So think through your mobile users. Paid search. You want to take the last couple?
Wow, I mean, that's where I'm the weakest. But certainly for local, some of the great things about paid search are that you can geo-target your advertising. You can also day part it, so that you can target people at certain times of day. If you looked in your analytics and found that people were more likely to I'll just say convert, because not of you sell things, but fill out a form, do whatever in the afternoon, you can target your ads at a certain time of day. Our strategy at Johns and I collectively is take over as much real estate in paid search as you can if you're going to do paid search. Meaning, get a nice, creative that'll fill up everything. Use site links to show all the site links you saw, like under your. You can do that in paid search too. Put a special if you can. Get some reviews if you can. And what you'll do is you'll push everybody else down by making this gigantic ad. So. It's not too clever, but that's our strategy for it. I mean, plus doing all your keyword research and being smart about how you buy. Get someone to help you with paid search. If you don't know how to do it, it's complicated, and you can spend a lot of money.
I bought a Google AdWords for the farmer's market just to start testing it out, and it was unbelievable how successful it worked. And you can set a budget every day for what you want to spend. So we're going all digital marketing for our farmer's market, but the beauty of it is for 6 weeks, they'll give you free assistance. So you can call them up and you talk to a real Google person, and they tell you how to set up the ad.
That's right, and they've really enhanced their level of customer service. It
Right.
used to be you couldn't even get on the phone with them unless you were spending $10,000 a month, and so, but they've really improved that, and they're sharp over there. The one other thing about paid search is it lets you test things. So you may say, hey, I really want to rank on this particular term. I feel strongly that that's going to indicate high intent. People who visit me on that term are going to come transact. You're likely not going to rank organically on it if it's a new term for your site. Go buy it and see if it converts. So it sort of creates a semi-low risk testing environment.
Well, when I found out, my husband has a small construction company, and I spent a lot of time on the phone with the Google AdWords people, and because he's in a space that's very competitive and there are people spending big bucks, they just sent us to the Express.
Sure.
They said, because at least you're going to pop up a few times
Sure.
a day.
Right.
But your budget, what you're going to spend per day, is what they're going to spend in drop of hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
I was playing around, and they spent a wonderful amount of time with me and walked me through what we needed to do. And probably we won't be doing it that long because I don't see it paying off. But I think we need to at least see a couple months and see if it drives more business to the site.
Sure. Just recently, and then when I say recently, like 3 weeks ago, Google AdWords integrated mobile into the campaigns. It used to be that you'd have to target mobile users specifically. Now within, this is kind of weedy, but within even the farmer's market campaign, you can allocate budget and direct creative to the type of device that the user is performing the search on. So point is, it's gotten very advanced, and you can learn a lot. Sort of end on a whimper with reputation
Yeah.
management. but-
Well, you know, like, for instance, you know, some of you are gonna see, if you're doing local, you're gonna see people reviewing your sites, you're gonna see star reviews under your entries, and it might be frustrating if those aren't really great reviews. You know, one of the big things that we see happening to people who are mostly concentrated on local is they try and handle those problems on their own. They think, well, or worse, they call somebody who's not very skilled at doing reputation management. And what happens is, someone might recommend to you, well, what we need to do is, because you have a couple of bad reviews on Yelp, we're going to generate 50 positive reviews for you on Yelp. We're just going to write them ourselves and submit them. You will be quickly dinged by Yelp for that, and all of a sudden, all they'll show is the bad reviews. So you can make your problem a lot worse. You know, reputation. If you run into a problem where, and we have a very small amount of clients, but we have some clients that are great clients that just got a bad break, and so when you search for them, you know, their name comes up first, and right underneath it, it's like some PBS documentary about how awful they are, something, you know, terrible that they just have to live with for the rest of their lives. There are ways to do this a smart way. It's usually doing it very above board and trying to answer the people who are being critical of you in a normal way. Beware of people telling you, I have a slick way of getting you fixed in your bad search results.